lot of people secretly remember a version of themselves that felt more alive, more creative, more helpful, more hopeful, more connected, more present. And now they look at themselves and think, what happened to me? If you have been calling yourself lazy, if you keep telling yourself, I just need more discipline, if your life looks functional from the outside, but internally you feel stuck, exhausted, overwhelmed, disconnected, or unable to fully move forward, I need you to hear me carefully. You may not be lazy at all. You may be in what I call functional freeze. And honestly, I think there are millions of people silently living in this state without realizing, because when most people think about trauma responses, they think about panic attacks or emotional breakdowns or people who completely shut down. But functional freeze can look very different. Functional freeze is when nervous system is overwhelmed, but you are still functioning just enough to survive. You just go to work. You still answer text. You still take care of people. You still pay bills. You still scroll. You still think constantly about everything you need to do. But internally, you feel emotionally paralyzed. You overthink everything. Simple tasks feel heavy. You procrastinate things that matter deeply to you. You feel guilty while resting, but also too exhausted to move. You spend more time preparing to live than actually living. And because you are technically functioning, nobody sees how much pain you are actually in. Sometimes not even you. A lot of people in functional freeze become extremely self-critical. They say things like, I'm wasting my life. I have so much potential. Why can't I just do it? Other people can handle life. What's wrong with me? And underneath all of that is shame, not laziness, shame. Because many people who live in functional freeze grew up in environments where their nervous systems never truly felt safe. Maybe love felt conditional. Maybe mistakes were humiliating. Maybe emotions overwhelmed the people around you. Maybe you were criticized constantly. Maybe you had to perform to feel valuable. Maybe your home looked normal on the outside, but emotionally felt unpredictable inside. Your nervous system adapted to that. And this is the important part. Your nervous system is not asking, how do I become successful? It is asking, how do I stay emotionally safe? That changes everything. Because what people often call procrastination is sometimes actually nervous system protection. If action once led to criticism, failure, rejection, humiliation, conflict, pressure, disappointment, or emotional overwhelm, your nervous system may start associating movement itself with danger. So you freeze. Not consciously, physiologically. And this is why motivation advice often does not work for people in functional freeze, because you cannot shame a dysregulated nervous system into sustainable healing. You can force yourself temporarily. You can panic yourself into productivity for short bursts. You can run on adrenaline, but eventually your system crashes again. Because the deeper issue was never laziness. A lot of people living in functional freeze are exhausted from surviving for too long, They're constantly monitoring, anticipating, preparing, overthinking, replaying conversations, worrying about outcomes, trying not to disappoint people, trying not to fail, trying not to be too much, trying to hold everything together. That is not relaxation. That is survival activation. And eventually, the body slows down because it cannot carry that level of stress forever. Sometimes functional freeze looks like scrolling for hours while feeling terrible about it, researching endlessly instead of starting, perfectionism, emotional numbness, sleeping but never feeling rested, fantasizing about changing your life but feeling unable to begin, constantly feeling behind, feeling disconnected from joy, being busy all day but unable to do the thing that matters most. And one of the saddest parts of functional freeze is the grief people carry privately, the grief of lost years, the grief of potential, the grief of becoming someone who no longer recognizes themselves. A lot of people secretly remember a version of themselves that felt more alive, more creative, more helpful, more hopeful, more connected, more present. And now they look at themselves and think, what happened to me? That question carries enormous pain. And I want to say something very important here. Your nervous system did not betray you. No. It adapted for you. It adapted for you. The problem is that survival responses that once protected you can eventually begin limiting your life. And healing is not about attacking yourself for that. Healing is about understanding your nervous system with compassion, not punishment. This is where many people get stuck because they think healing means forcing themselves harder, becoming more disciplined, waking up at 5 a.m., optimizing every second, becoming emotionally tougher. But many people in functional freeze are already too hard on themselves. They do not need more pressure. They need safety, emotional safety, nervous system safety, internal safety. And sometimes healing begins very slowly, not with huge transformations, not with becoming a completely different person overnight, but with tiny moments where your nervous system begins learning, I'm safe enough to move. That may look like resting without attacking yourself, completing one task without perfectionism, feeling an emotion instead of suppressing it, noticing shame without becoming consumed by it, setting boundaries, asking for help, reconnecting with your body, slowing down enough to hear yourself again. And honestly, one of the hardest things for people in functional freeze is that they often invalidate their own pain because they're still functioning. They say, but other people have it worse. I should be grateful. I'm still getting things done. I am being dramatic. Meanwhile, their nervous system is screaming underneath the surface. Functional freeze is exhausting because you are simultaneously overwhelmed, underrested, emotionally disconnected, and blaming yourself for all of it. That creates deep hopelessness over time. And this is why I need people to stop reducing themselves to words like lazy, weak, unmotivated, or incapable. Sometimes your nervous system is not resisting success. Sometimes it is protecting you from perceived danger based on experiences you may not have fully processed yet. And healing does not begin with self-hatred. It begins with curiosity, with understanding, with slowly asking, what happened to me that made my nervous system feel this unsafe? Not what is wrong with me. That question changes everything because People heal differently when they stop treating themselves like a broken machine and start understanding themselves like a human being who adapted to pain. And maybe healing begins the moment you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What happened to me?"